Hello, dear friends. Hope you are doing well. So, today's story is about a tragedy so unimaginable that no one believed it could ever happen. A moment that arrived without warning, without logic, and without mercy. It shattered a sense of safety, changed a nation's identity, and forced the world to look at peace in a very different way. This is the story of who carried out the attack, why it happened, and how its consequences still shape Australia today. So, let's begin the story. Australia was once seen as one of the safest countries in the world, a place where violence felt distant, a nation built on peace, law, and trust. People believed that something like this could never happen here. But on one ordinary day, that belief was destroyed forever. What happened was not just an attack. It was a moment that changed Australia's identity, and the effects are still felt today. This is the story of who did it, why it happened, and how a single event reshaped an entire nation. Before 1996, Australians lived with a sense of security that many countries could only imagine. Public places felt safe. Tourist sites were calm. Fear was something people saw on the news, not something they experienced themselves. Gun violence existed, but mass attacks were almost unthinkable. No one expected that a single individual would expose a weakness so deep that it would force the country to change its laws, its mindset, and its future. Port Arthur was a historic site, a place visited by families, travelers, and locals. It represented reflection, history, and peace. On April 28, 1996, people arrived there with no fear, no warnings, no signs of danger. Within a short period of time, that calm turned into chaos. An armed man began attacking innocent people inside and around the site. Confusion spread instantly. People ran without understanding what was happening. Some hid, some froze. Australia had never experienced violence like this before. News began to spread rapidly. Emergency services rushed to respond, but the damage was already done. The country was in shock. Soon the attacker was identified. His name was Martin Bryant, a 28-year-old Australian citizen. He was not part of any terrorist organization. There was no political message, no religious motive. This was not an ideological attack. Investigators described him as a deeply troubled individual with serious psychological and behavioral issues. But mental illness alone did not explain how such destruction was possible. The question everyone asked was simple. Why? There was no manifesto, no warning, no clear reason. Experts later concluded that the attack was driven by severe mental disturbance, lack of early intervention, and easy access to powerful firearms. The randomness made it even more terrifying. Because if there was no clear motive, then there were no clear warning signs. Australia stood still. Families searched for loved ones. The nation mourned together. For the first time, Australians began asking themselves a question they had never needed to ask before. Are we really safe? Public pressure grew. Grief turned into anger, and the government was forced to respond. What happened next would define Australia's future. Within months, the country introduced some of the strictest gun laws in the world. Certain firearms were banned. A nationwide buyback program was launched. Millions of weapons were removed from circulation. It was a difficult decision, but it was a direct response to Port Arthur. The attack did more than take lives. It changed policy. It changed culture. It changed history. Years later, the question still remains. Could it have been prevented? Could better mental health systems have helped? Could earlier intervention have saved lives? Could stronger laws before the attack have stopped it from happening? There are so simple answers, but one truth is clear. Ignoring warning signs comes at a devastating cost. Since 1996, Australia has not experienced another mass shooting on the same scale. Many experts believe the changes made after Port Arthur played a critical role. The tragedy became a turning point, a moment where a nation chose action over denial. But the memory remains. Because peace is fragile, safety is never permanent. Port Arthur was not just an attack, it was a warning, a reminder that silence can hide danger, that systems can fail, and that change, even after tragedy, can protect future generations. Australia paid a terrible price that day, but it chose to change, so that history would. History remembers Port Arthur not just for what was lost, but for what it forced a nation to confront. A single moment exposed how fragile safety truly is, and how quickly normal life can be torn apart. The tragedy showed that violence does not always arrive with warnings, and danger does not always have a clear face. But it also proved something else. That change is possible, even after unimaginable loss. Australia chose to listen to the lessons written in grief, to act where others might have hesitated, and to protect future generations from repeating the same mistake. The lives lost that day can never be replaced. The pain can never be erased, but their memory reshaped a country. Port Arthur became more than a crime scene. It became a turning point, a reminder that peace must be protected, that warning signs must never be ignored, and that silence can be the most dangerous response of all. Because safety is not permanent. It is a responsibility. And history will always remember the day Australia chose to change.